Hello, my name is Dale. Welcome back to my channel, Thimbles, Threads, and More. In today's video, I'm going to share how I make a quilt using the Quaint Village layer cake. And for those of you who may be new to quilting, a layer cake is 42 squares like so, and they're 10 inches. Here are the 20 squares that I'm going to leave whole. Now here are my remaining 10-inch squares, and I'm going to cut these into three 3-inch by 10-inch squares. Because I have my entire table is set up for cutting, these boards are here and they have the measurements on them, so I can see where my 3-inch is and where my 10-inch is right there, and I can just line up my ruler and I can just slice up that way, come over here to the 6-inch slice, and then come over here to the 9-inch and cut that way. And the thing that I use the most when I'm cutting fabric is my rotary blade. And if you don't have one, get one. There are great many brands out there that are good. But change your blade as often as you need to. As I cut the squares, I am putting them across my table like this. And I'm just throwing the end that you won't use into a scrap pile that will be used for something later. Now that I have cut all of my 10-inch squares, my next thing is I kind of refer to this. I want to go back and say that when you get a layer cake, if you don't know what kind of quilt you're going to make, the layer cake, this is in the back of layer cakes, and it kind of gives you a cutting guide. And so what I do is I look at it, and this is the one that I chose, but I'm doing the 3. I'm doing the 3-inch by 10-inch. And so that's why I've got these cut into 3s. And I'm going to push my scraps aside, and I'm going to take these, and I'm going to put 3 together. And I think one of them will go like so. That's 3. Now that's 3. And we'll sew those 3 together. And I'll say they won't be exact because I've only got 3 of each. And then we'll do 1 of these and 1 of those. And all of those with the 1/4 inch seam will be sewn together. And then we'll take that one with that. And you just kind of go through and mark what you're going to do. There's no perfection. You just want to make sure that it is finished. During COVID, I did a lot more, taught myself a lot more, and I didn't have anybody here with me, but I watched a lot of videos from people whom I consider to be professionals in the field. And so everybody would say, finished, not perfect. And I have kept that in mind. So as you can see, I'm just laying these out, and I'm not going to bore you with doing all of them, but I'm going to get them all laid out, and then we're going to go to the sewing table and sew these in sets of 3s, and then we'll get to our next step. So here are my sets, and who am I kidding? I fussed a little bit with the colors, and here they are. Now we're ready for the clipping. We're going to take these 3 strips, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fold my fronts together here, and I'm going to take my clips. I don't know about you, but I've fallen in love with clips. Forget pins because they distort your fabrics, so to speak. So I just use these little clips that I found online, and they're perfect for just what I'm doing. Now that we're at the machine, let's sew sets of these together. It's time to iron the rail blocks that we've just created. So now I'm to the part where I'm going to join my sections, and I've done one. I have clipped it. Well, that's not it. I have clipped this section together. So my first one will be my rail block, and then I've got my hole, and then I've clipped another rail block to a hole, and so forth. And so on this one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 hole blocks. And on this one, I'm gonna start with the hole block, and then I'll just choose one and go with it for a rail block and go with it. And all I'm doing is putting the sides, right sides together. I clip it. And continue like so. And then take the next one, make sure I've got it right. And I go from there, just clipping it as I go, making sure I've got them even. And the great thing about this layer cake, the edges are on these hole blocks. They are pinked with the pinking shears or machine that does it like the pinking shears. And that's fabulous because it keeps them from fraying. And then, as you can see, I've got a hole block, a rail block, a hole square, and then I'm gonna now need another rail. So I can go with, and I'm just picking and choosing. That's not normally what I do. I just usually choose a color and I will just go for it. Because it doesn't matter to me right now. It's gonna be cute anyway. And I just clip these. As I said, I used a flat side down. And then the next. And so what I've chosen to do is I've got my first row starts with, let me look back over there at it, a solid square, and then the next row begins with the rail block. The third row begins with a solid square. So my fourth row will begin with the rail block, and my last row will be a solid square. I know it just seems like busy work, but trust me, it's gonna turn out. And the key thing I want you to remember is to iron. Now I'm putting these together, and I like to go ahead and do all of my sewing, and then I'm gonna go back after I sew. What I'm doing after I pin this one, I'm going straight to the sewing machine. For one, I don't want to remember which order. I don't want to forget which order I got these out of. And I could put a sticky on them. But I like to make sure I iron, and I take my time, and I do a good job ironing. So ironing is a big part of quilting. So just be prepared to do a lot of ironing after each step. I'm not showing that probably every time, but please know that I am doing a lot of ironing. I won't be washing this, but I will be ironing it for sure. You've got part of it like the rail, all my rail blocks are ironed, and these are ironed, but the seams are gonna need ironing because as I get ready to quilt these, this top, which that's a whole nother video, I'm gonna need those seams flat as possible. And I'm not ironing the seams open, but I am making sure that my darker squares have the seams towards them. And this is the last one on this one. I want to make sure I got that right. And so there's that clip together. And so my next one starts with the rail block, and that's just the repetitive process, but I wanted you to see that what I was doing. And I'm going to come back after I finish clipping all of these. I don't want to bore you, and soon we'll be ready to sew our rows together. I'm to the part where row 1 has been ironed, row 2 has been ironed, and I'm ready to join rows 1 and 2. And I'm going to do my 1/4 inch seam to join those. I've already done rows 3 and 4 right after I ironed those. Went ahead and stitched those, and let me tell you, they are just beautiful. So we're just sewing row 1 and 2, joining them together. And when I finish, I will press the seams, which will be right there. I'll press the seam for row 1 and 2. So stay tuned. We're almost there. So I wanted to share rows 1 and 2 have been joined. 3 and 4 have been joined. And there's row 5. And row 5 is going to face row 4. Right sides together. I'm going to clip them together and then iron, and then, stitch and then iron. And then we'll have the top completed. Well, no, we won't. We still have to join 2 and part 1 and part 2. So then we've got 2 seams to do. This one, join these 2, and that one. Here it is. Here is the finished product. Well, it's not finished. I've got to put my sandwich together and do all of that. But that's another video. This is a one-day quilt. And I thank you for joining in, watching me, and spending time with me as I made this quilt. Have fun with yours. See you soon. Damn.